Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something absolutely mind-boggling. We're looking at an ongoing geological anomaly that's literally tearing up the ground and completely defying everything we thought we knew about the Earth beneath our feet. So let's just get right into it and explore this sudden, totally unexplained abyssal crater that recently blew open in the frozen expanses of Siberia. Sudden, massive, unexplained. You know, when we usually talk about geology, we're thinking about processes that take millions of years, right? Like tectonic plates slowly shifting or a canyon carving out over eons. But what happens when the Earth just abruptly rewrites its own topography in a literal fraction of a second? The anomaly we're breaking down today is defined entirely by these three stark words, and honestly, it really makes you question how well we actually know our own planet. Okay, so let's start with part one, the sudden explosion that violently shattered the isolated Siberian landscape. Our source specifically highlights a sudden explosion. Now, that phrase implies a massive underground pressure buildup, but the craziest part here, there were absolutely zero warning signs. No visible fissures slowly forming over time to tip anyone off, just a catastrophic immediate release of energy from deep, deep below the surface. I mean, just imagine the sheer amount of invisible subterranean tension it would take to trigger an event of this massive scale without a single prelude. It's wild. Moving right along to part two, the abyssal crater formation, and how this sudden burst of energy left behind a permanent scar. The source goes on to highlight the formation of the massive, mysterious crater in Siberia. Now, as we all know, Siberia is famous for its extreme conditions and these endlessly flat, frozen expanses. And then, right in the middle of all that ice and snow, this immense, pitch-black void just opens up. The source explicitly calls it massive and mysterious, and they're right. The sheer scale of the displaced earth and ice is completely jarring. It totally interrupts the natural geography, pointing to a subterranean force that's honestly kind of hard to even wrap your head around. Now, what's really interesting here is the word abyssal, meaning resembling an abyss in depth, bottomless and unfathomable. It's a heavy word, and it perfectly captures this physical anomaly. We aren't just talking about a shallow little pothole in the permafrost here. We are looking down into an immeasurable darkness. The word gives you this genuine sense of awe, you know? It tells us that peering into this crater is basically like staring into the deep ocean, a place where light just literally fails to reach the bottom. And the timeline of this whole thing is just so abrupt. It's literally just step one, a sudden explosion from this invisible buildup of force. Step two, the crater formation. That's it. There is no intermediate step, no slow, creeping transition. One moment, the Siberian permafrost is completely intact, exactly as it has been for thousands of years. And the very next moment, boom, an abyssal void exists. This incredibly rapid two-step process is exactly what makes the phenomenon so fascinating for researchers to study. Which brings us to part three, the void. The absolute limit where our current scientific understanding basically hits a brick wall. The crucial point here is this final, really unsettling phrase from our source that scientists still cannot fully explain. I mean, really think about that for a second. We live in an era where we can track weather patterns from space. We can detect microscopic shifts in tectonic plates. But the absolute greatest minds studying this massive, violent event, they simply do not have the answers. It's truly awe-inspiring and maybe a little spooky to realize that despite all of our incredibly advanced geological mapping, we still have massive blind spots right here on our own planet. So, look at it this way. What we know is the undeniable physical reality. An explosion formed a massive crater in Siberia. We can measure it, we can photograph it, we can even stand right on the edge of it. But what we don't know? The scientific explanation behind it. That part remains completely blank. It almost feels like a glitch in the matrix, like missing data. We have this staggering result staring us in the face, but the equation leading up to it is entirely unsolved. And that serves as a profound reminder of just how much of our own planet remains fundamentally wild and unknown. So this brings us to the ultimate implication of this whole anomaly. If a sudden, massive explosion can just rip open the Earth to create this unfathomable crater, and our absolute best scientific models cannot fully explain how or why it happened, then we really have so much left to learn. Because if science cannot explain what tore open the Siberian ground, what will happen when the next explosion occurs? What else might be brewing right beneath the surface, just waiting to be discovered? Definitely keep that curiosity in mind the next time you think about the solid ground beneath your feet. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll catch you next time.